Robert Adamson was a Scottish philosopher and professor of logic at Glasgow. Early life. He was born in Kingsbunds in Fife. His father was a solicitor, and his mother was the daughter of Matthew Buist, factor to Lord Haddington. In 1,855 million rupees, Adamson was left a widow with small means, and devoted herself entirely to the education of her 6 children. Of these, Robert was successful from the first. At the end of his school career, he entered the University of Edinburgh at the age of 14, and 4 years later graduated with first-class honours in mental philosophy, with prizes in every department of the Faculty of Arts. He completed his university successes by winning the Tyndall Bruce Scholarship, the Hamilton Fellowship, the Ferguson Scholarship and the Shaw Fellowship. After a short residence at Heidelberg, where he began his study of German philosophy, he returned to Edinburgh as assistant first to Henry Calderwood and later to A. Campbell of Fraser. He joined the staff of the Encyclopaedia Britannica and studied widely in the Advocates' Library. Professorial appointments. In 1876 he came to England as successor to W. S. Jevons in the chair of Logic and Philosophy at Owens College, Manchester. In 1883 he received the honorary degree of LL.D. In 1893 he went to the University of Aberdeen, and finally in 1895 to the chair of Logic at the University of Glasgow, which he held till his death. Except during the first few years at Manchester, he delivered his lectures without manuscripts. In 1903, under the title The Development of Modern Philosophy and Other Essays, his more important lectures were published with a short biographical introduction by W.R. Sawley of Cambridge University. Most of the matter is taken verbatim from the notebook of one of his students. Under the same editorship there appeared, 3 years later, his Development of Greek Philosophy. In addition to his professional work, he did much administrative work for Victoria University and the University of Glasgow. In the organisation of Victoria University he took a foremost part, and, as chairman of the Board of Studies at Owens College, he presided over the General Academical Board of the Victoria University. At Glasgow he was soon elected one of the representatives on the court, and to him were due in large measure the extension of the academical session and the improved equipment of the university. Throughout his lectures, Adamson pursued the critical and historical method without formulating a constructive theory of his own. He felt that any philosophical advance must be based on the Kantian methods. It was his habit to make straight for the ultimate issue, disregarding half-truths and declining compromise. He left a hypothesis to be worked out by others. This done, he would criticize with all the rigor of logic, and with a profound distrust of imagination, metaphor and the attitude known as the will to believe. Philosophical views. As he grew older, his metaphysical optimism waned. He felt that the increase of knowledge must come in the domains of physical science, but this empirical tendency as regards science never modified his metaphysical outlook. He has been called Kantian and neo-Kantian, realist and idealist. At the same time, in his criticism of other views he was almost typical of Hegelian idealism. All processes of reasoning and judgment are analyzable only by abstraction, and a compound of deduction and induction, i.e., rational and empirical. An illustration of his empirical tendency is found in his attitude to the absolute and the self. The absolute doctrines he regarded as a mere disguise of failure, a dishonest attempt to clothe ignorance in the pretentious garb of mystery. The self as a primary, determining entity he would not therefore admit. He represented an empiricism which, so far from refuting, was actually based on idealism, and yet was alert to expose the fallacies of a particular idealist construction. Personal life. His wife, Margaret Duncan, the daughter of a Manchester merchant, was a woman of kindred tastes, and the union was entirely happy. published writings. It is matter for regret to the student that Adamson's active labors in the lecture room precluded him from systematic production. His writings consisted of short articles, of which many appeared in the Encyclopedia and in Mind, a volume on Kant and another on Fichte. At the time of his death he was writing a history of psychology, and had promised to work on Kant and the modern naturalists. Both in his life and in his writings he was remarkable for impartiality. It was his peculiar virtue that he could quote his opponents without warping the meaning. For this point of view he would have been perhaps the first historian of philosophy of his time, had his professional labors been less exacting. Bibliography. The following were published either in his lifetime or posthumously: Development of Greek Philosophy, The Development of Modern Philosophy and Other Essays, The Fichte Blackwood's Philosophical Classics, On the Philosophy of Kant, Contributions to the Encyclopaedia Britannica 9th edition Friedrich von Hermann, Contributions to the Encyclopaedia Britannica 11th edition Roger Bacon, Friedrich Eduard Benneker, George Berkeley, St. Bonaventura, Giordano Bruno, Joseph Butler. Category: Johannes Scotus Erigena, Johann Gottlieb Fichte, Pierre Gassendi, David Hume, Immanuel Kant, Francis Bacon, Fourier, François Charles Marie. Contributions to the Dictionary of National Biography Adelard of Bar, Alcuin, Alexander of Hales, Alfred Anglicus, Bacon, Roger, Aiton, Thomas Campbell.